Pacific Coast Warehousing and Shipping. They were my hero, my knight on a white horse, because as you'll hear through this story, getting our shoeboxes from here in Vancouver Island to Gatineau, where they needed to go to launch, was, well, it was something. So I'm going to read to you the letter that I wrote documenting my journey, because what happened was, we gathered up all our shoe boxes, and there was a trucking company who had said that they would ship them for us to Gatineau, well, actually to Ottawa, and they would do that, as a charity donation to the project, and that was really awesome, and I made that arrangement with the owner of the company, and so I thought it was a done deal. And I drove the shoeboxes over to the company, and I met with the owner, and we put the shoeboxes in his office, and that was about a week before the day that they were supposed to go. Then I heard from José Lusignan, who you've also heard of at I Love First Peoples, and she said, "Where's the tracking number on the shoeboxes?" So I called over to the company, and I said, "Hey, can I have the tracking number? The recipient would like to follow them so she can plan her end accordingly, and cough up the details, right?" And the person on the phone said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any shoeboxes going to blah, 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 blah. They never left. There's nothing here. I got nothing for you." So I'm like, "No, I met with Mr. Big Man. He said he would send them. I brought them in his office. I carried them in. They're there. They should have been on a truck. Like, work with me here, okay?" And so she hung up the phone and called me back about 2 hours later. And she said, "Well, actually, because it was a charitable donation, there was no waybill," or I think that's what she said, waybill created. And the shoe boxes never made it onto the truck. And I'm like, "What? Now what do I do?" Because time was creeping and we had to get our shoe boxes to Ottawa. So I called around to a number of other transportation companies, many of whom said they would be happy to help us, but that it was just too short of a timeline from when we needed them to go out for them to be able to coordinate that. And so they would help us this year and yada yada. In other words, go blow. So I was heartbroken, and I was trying to figure out, okay, now what? So I came to the conclusion that I would rent a car, drive them halfway across Canada, and hand deliver my shoe boxes that all of you had so awesomely donated, to make sure that they got to the kids at Attawapiskat, because I just did not want to be the one to go to bed at night knowing that I had ruined Christmas for 100 kids. Because they needed 600 shoeboxes for Attawapiskat, but from right here in the island, we came up with 100 in the short amount of time that we had to get organized, which is all because of a whole other reason. But it was a true labor of love, and people just came out in huge style. Some of those shoeboxes, I couldn't believe the stuff that was in them. I'm like, "Can I move to Attawapiskat, please? Or how about if I just keep this one shoebox? No one will notice." But no. So that's what we did. So today, out of respect and fair play, I'm not going to name the company. By next week, that's going to change. I have contacted the owner of the company today, and I want to give him time to reply to me and resolve this in a fair and reasonable way. And if he does that, my story next week will be kudos to him. And if he doesn't, I'm going to name names. And I'm going to start naming names on all kinds of stuff. So you guys are going to want to tune in every week just to hear who's on the hot seat at that point. And trust me when I say the gloves are coming off. So I'm going to write you a letter because, I'm going to read you my letter because here's what happened. I loaded these shoe boxes up into this little Corolla. Cute, cute little car. It was new. It was clean. It was wonderful. And I was like, yeah, okay. It had a heated seat. I joined the land of the living. And off we went. And we started on Saturday, December 3rd. And and we started driving, and all was good. I took my better half, my significant other, my little 3-pound Chihuahua Shmoo, and we set off down the road to go halfway across Canada. And all was well. We got on the ferry. We made it through Vancouver. We made it all the way to the start of the Rockies. And the weather started to turn bad. And that's when this story started to turn bad. Because when I went to the company to rent the car, I specifically said to them, look, I need a car with snow tires because I'm going through the Rockies, and the law says you have to have snow tires from October to the end of February. And I'm going into Quebec, which also says you're supposed to have snow tires. And it turned out later that the law is that you're actually supposed to have snow tires on cars that are licensed in Quebec, but whoa, I'd prefer to be safe. So if the law says that you should have snow tires, then I think I count whether I live there or not. So I specifically asked for snow tires. And as a matter of fact, the person said to me, well, what we have is good enough. They're the same. And I was like, okay, I don't know much about tires. And off we go. And she also even sent me over to, I originally wanted this certain kind of car that I had Googled because it had the best gas mileage. And I was doing this trip on a shoestring, less than a shoestring, because there was no plan to go on a vacation. This wasn't a vacation. This was going to be drive straight through pretty much for 48 hours, drop off the shoebox, turn around, come right back and say, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. And do it safely. So I said, I need snow tires, and I want this type of car, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was a Kia Rio or something. And she said, oh, well, we don't have those with snow tires, but the company 2 doors down there, and it was at the airport, so you know how they're all lined up, but the company 2 doors down there has those with snow tires, so why don't you go check over there? So me and my Shmoo, we wandered over there. I'm like, hey, you know, do you have my Kia Rio with snow tires? We do, but they're all rented out, so here's what we have. And it was more money than at the original place, so I went back to the original place. And she said, why are you driving all the way to blah, 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 to Ottawa? Have you got family there? I said, nope. You know, and we had this discussion as she was filling out the paper about the shoe boxes and why I was driving them there, you know, for these Christmas presents. And you know, you're there for a little while while they fill out all the paperwork. And so, like I said, we got the keys, we loaded up, and off we went, and all was well in Christineville. We, as we were driving, it's pretty boring and lonely on the highway by yourself, and me being me, and as a reporter and a blogger, I pulled out my tape recorder and I started talking to myself. And once I can go ahead and share the name with you of these companies and these people, I'm going to play you some of these recordings next week because I am freaking hilarious. You don't have to laugh at my jokes. It's totally okay because I will laugh myself crazy because it was so silly, but it was so much fun. But one of the themes of the commentary was how unsafe this little car felt. It felt to me like it was just so light and like I was literally skating. So I thought I chalked it up literally on the recording. I'm saying to myself, well, you know, it's probably just because I drive a big truck and this is just a little car, so I'm probably just not used to the difference, you know, 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, whatever. And I just chalked it up to not being used to the car. As I started to go into the Rockies, the weather started to get ridiculously crazy. It was almost a complete whiteout. And here I was in this little tiny white car, white, aka snowbank. And if you've ever driven through the Coquihalla, you know on one side you've got oncoming semis, and on the other side you've got a drop down to the ocean and the rocks, and it's lots of feet down below. And it got to the point where the weather was so bad that the only thing keeping me in my lane was highway braille, aka rumble strips. If you hit the rumble strips on the left-hand side, you knew you were going into oncoming traffic. If you hit the rumble strips on the right side, you knew you were about to take a dip in the ocean. As long as you stay between the rumble strips, you were okay. Well, that type of highway braille helped us to get from through the Coquihalla, through the Rockies, through Banff, into Revelstoke, where there's another huge commentary about explosives. There's a huge sign that says "Beware of explosives," that I'm still trying to process in my tiny little brain. And we made it through to Medicine Hat, Alberta. So I'm going to start this letter here. And I just wanted to set that up for you, and I'm going to read it to you. And this is the letter that I sent to this company to explain to them what had happened, because the absolute ludicrousness, if that's even a word, of what transpired still makes me speechless. So here we go. Hello. My name, yes, that's me, is Christine McGee, and I'm the host of Magooz News radio show and Shaw Cable's Indigenous Voices. If you didn't know that and you're on the West Coast, yes, I host the Shaw Cable show Indigenous Voices on Channel 4, as well as this weekly Magooz News. I need to share with you my dilemma over the last week, as I need your urgent assistance to make right what has taken place. Over the last few months, my shows were collecting shoeboxes of Christmas gifts in partnership with I Love First Peoples for a celebration to be held on the Fly-In Reserve of Attawapiskat, Ontario on December 9th, 2016. The plane and the team, administrators, celebrities, media, etc., were scheduled to leave on a private charter Wednesday, December 7th, 2016 at 1:30 p.m. from Timmins, Ontario, with a meeting in Gatineau, Quebec first. That's where we were going to hand them off the shoeboxes. Was in Gatineau. I rented a car in Sydney, BC on December 2nd to collect and load up the gifts and leave Saturday, December 3rd to drive to the Gatineau meeting. I specifically requested winter tires for the trip, as per the laws on the Coquihalla highways in the Rockies. I've driven from Sydney, BC to Winnipeg, Manitoba in the winter 2 times a year for the last 10 years, and I'm familiar with the route and the conditions. So this wasn't a new drive for me, folks. Like I'd done it a number of times. I knew what to expect. You know, it wasn't that I was a rookie driver on this route. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. On December 4th, I just spilled tea all over. On December 4th, the leg of the trip became very sketchy, beginning at Hope, BC, and ultimately had to make 2 unplanned stops for a few hours each between there and Banff, because the car's stability felt dangerous to me. Other vehicles weren't stopping, so I thought it was odd and thought possibly it was because I was unfamiliar with this car. I arrived in Medicine Hat on December 4th at approximately 5 p.m. when the car slid off the highway, narrowly missing a billboard sign into a highway ditch in the middle of nowhere. That pole would undoubtedly have caused extensive harm. So, as I said, I have done this drive 100 times. I lived in Manitoba for most of my life, and I am not unfamiliar with highway snow driving. So what happened was, a semi-trailer that was on the inside lane on the 4-lane highway outside of Medicine Hat jackknifed and fell over, and the back draft, okay, he didn't hit us, didn't touch us, the back draft of the whoosh of his trailer going down sent our little Corolla literally skating into the ditch. Now, like I say, I knew how to drive that car, so I handled it appropriately, and we didn't hit anything. But after we stopped and I got out of the car, I went back to look where we had come through. And we had literally missed one of those huge billboard signs by about 6 inches. And that's 6 inches to the tire tracks. So where your tire tracks are, don't forget, you've got the whole body of your car another few inches wider than that. So literally, I had almost been, impaled by this sign. And it was quite a scary experience. And so, of course, I wasn't so worried. I had roadside assistance. I'd purchased the coverage, so I'm going to go back to the letter now. I purchased the coverage, called roadside assistance, and they dispatched a tow truck. The tow truck driver told me I did not have winter tires, and that's why I slid off the road.